Hello, welcome to another video. This one is about the latest antics of Tasmania's incompetent Attorney General, Guy Barnett, the Honourable Member for Lyons. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, Guy Barnett is at it again. And this time it's a really big deal. Now I'm going to be referring to an article by Lucy McDonald that was published on ABC News. But what is the news? The news is that a new Chief Justice of the Tasmanian Supreme Court has been appointed. Very, very serious position. One of the most serious senior positions in the whole state. And that appointment went to Chris Shanahan out of Western Australia, who has no experience as a judge. Honestly, it'd be funny if it weren't so serious. I mean, this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I'm saying this as a layman, but let's get to the leaked email from a Tasmanian judicial officer. And I quote, this is from the article. The appointment of a man of modest professional achievement and no connection whatsoever to our state is an insult to both our judiciary and our profession, he wrote. Now that is strong language. This was an email sent to Guy Barnett himself from this judicial officer, which I suspect may have been a Supreme Court judge. But I don't know. Continuing, it is a particularly poor decision when regard is had to the fact that the senior puny judge, Justice Helen Wood, is universally respected, recognised as one of Tasmania's best ever judges, and has a history of service to Tasmania. And finally, I do not send this email lightly, but I am so dismayed that I cannot remain silent, he wrote. So it's a male judicial officer. And earlier in the article it says the judicial officer wrote that he, like many of his colleagues, was astonished at the news. That's a quote. Astonished at the news. As am I. As am I. Flabbergasted. So multiple judicial officers are shocked. The Tasmanian legal community is in shock at this incompetent AG's decision. As we have a gnat determined to fly in front of the lens. That's what happens when you live near a swamp, folks. Okay, so now what's my contribution to this discussion? We're going to touch on Helen Wood in a moment, and I will be referring to a recently published book which has a bit of a biography about her. My contribution is that when you go into a court, you could be a defendant, you could be an applicant on appeal or whatever. As a layman, you don't have a body of case law in your head because you might not have ever been to court before. And so you rely on the judge to draw on their knowledge of case law and, of course, Tasmanian statutes, but their knowledge of case law to kind of level the playing field between you as an unrepresented person and the professional legal counsel on the other side. The professional legal counsel on the other side will cherry pick all the case law and make things try and fit what they believe or want to have happen. And they can be very specious and frankly take things out of context and act rather dishonourably with regard to state lawyers. That's from my experience. Now, if the judge doesn't have that knowledge, they're not able to, as well, don't get me wrong, they can get an assistant, they can do case law research, but they don't have the convenience of that knowledge in their head that only comes through dint of experience in this state, in the Supreme Court, or at least in the Magistrates Court in this state. So that's concerning, and the first people who go in front of this judge, they're basically training him. He's getting on-the-job training but he might not perform his role as well as he should, and there might be an injustice as a result, and that ought to be terrifying. You could have life-changing decisions being made without the level of competence at the bench that you would expect. Okay, so a shocking decision not to hire someone with experience and knowledge of Tasmania's justice system, statutes, case law, the whole thing. Now, I'm going to refer now to this book. I'll just try and tilt the camera up because she's a big one. From Convicts to Computers, 200 Years of the Tasmanian Supreme Court by Justice Stephen Estcourt AM. This book only just came out, and fortunately we have to change the camera angle here. Something of a biography on Justice Helen Murray Wood. Okay. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I do need to read some of it because this is important. She was educated in state schools including Newtown Primary School, Five Dock Primary School in Sydney, Correspondence School on Swan Island, Tagari High School, and Hobart Matric, as it was then known. She attended the University of Tasmania, and so on. Took a position at a firm, took a position at the DPP. She was involved in some, I think, industrial prosecutions there, industrial safety, environmental protection. Considerable experience in cases involving sexual crimes. There she is. Worked at another firm after the DPP. At age 31, she was appointed Tasmania's first female judicial officer, joining the Magistrates Court, replacing Stephen Estcourt in 1994. And mentorship from Damien Bugg. And if you read this, you'll see comments about her paying tribute to all the people she's learned from and, gained insights, sensitivities from, and so on. Youth Justice Court endeavoured to tailor the procedures and language of the courtroom for young defendants. And so this is what we missed out on, guys. This is what the Tasmanian public have missed out on, as well as the people who work at the Supreme Court. So, I mean, I guess she's there as a judge, isn't she? But, to have Mr. Shanahan chosen by the old war criminal there instead of Helen Wood seems very, very strange. And there may have been other great applicants as well, but I don't know who they were. Anti-discrimination tribunal experience. This is the caliber of Chief Justice we could have had. Elevated to a judge of the court Supreme Court in 2009, whereas Mr. Shanahan has never been a judge. He's lectured in law, but that's no substitute. In fact, I've heard some people highlight the big difference between law in a lecture theatre and law in real life. I mean, he is an SC, I'll give him that, but yeah, so we're just going to have a little bit more of a look here. Here's something I wanted to read out. This is a quote from Justice Wood. I believe that a measure of society is how it treats its most disadvantaged. I also think that a measure that can be applied to every profession is the way in which that profession treats the most disadvantaged people who turn to it for help. I mean, I see that as a positive attitude very much, as long as it's not just paying lip service, but taking that at face value. That's the kind of attitude you would want from any judge. Yeah, she pays tributes to various people and bodies, and there's a couple of other little things here that I wanted to. Wood remains known and admired for her dignity and her industry in the discharge of her judicial functions. She has also been an outstanding jurist. Yes, this is it. Well-researched and carefully crafted judgments, expounding difficult legal concepts with simplicity and clarity. That's exactly what you want in law. Now, there's an interesting case here about criminal responsibility, and she had a dissenting view on interpretation of application of common law, and a number of years later, 9 years later, her view was adopted by 5 judges of the court as the correct view. So someone who's capable of independent thought and not just going with the flow. A similar sort of thing here with tendency evidence and how that some evidence can be interpreted as being tendency evidence or not. So that's interesting too. And you can read about some various cases in here. There's something about so she's also a board member of the Tasmanian Law Reform Institute, member of the Judicial Council on Cultural Diversity, Australian Council of Judicial Administration, committee member of the Australian Association of Women Judges, guest lecturer, cultural awareness and working with interpreters for the legal practice course in collaboration with the director of the course. So that's quite a resume, and you can get a copy of this book and read that in more detail. And instead, we have someone who's never been a judge and with no experience from taking the article at face value in the Tasmanian courts. It's just bizarre. I mean, this Attorney General is incompetent. He really blundered the handling of the Justice Geeson matter, tried to ram through an ad hoc act built around one person, and it was just bizarre. I actually made some submissions on that. Glad to see the act was abandoned. But what was this gentleman thinking? This war criminal. Why do I say that? Because he was a big pro-war senator in March 2003, if you know what I mean. With his fake applied grin and his dead, vacuous eyes. He was a terrible energy minister. He's a liar. He lied about Iraq. He lied about energy. He goes from blunder to blunder as AG. Some say he's not the sharpest tool in the shed. It's not hard to believe that claim. Why on earth do we have to... I mean, this government needs to be brought down, but I'm going to keep going here with the main story. Now, Chris Shanahan, I went to the Wikipedia. I just skipped to the education. Educated at Aquinas College, or Aquinas. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. Now, Aquinas College, also from Wikipedia, is an independent Roman Catholic single-sex primary and secondary day and boarding school for boys located at Solder Point, a suburb of Perth, WA. I take that to be a private school, a boys' private school, Catholic school. So the private school boy gets the job and the state school educated girl doesn't, despite her incredible resume, experience in Tasmania, respect in the field. And what are we going to do? We have to get rid of this Attorney General. The last one was awful as well, and this one I think is even worse. Thanks for watching.